What's up, guys? Welcome to Elevate Elite, the Basecamp podcast. My name's Donovan, your host, and today I'm going to be talking to Mr. Aaron Davis, owner of Firefly Solar out in North Carolina, and a very good friend of mine, a very unique personality, an eclectic personality, as I like to say. And we're going to be getting into quite a bit as far as business ownership, the grind of the solar industry. On the install side, he is a fully vertically integrated installer. So what that means is sales to door knock and lead generation, all the way up to install and maintenance. He does it all in house, and not a lot of companies do that. So I very much value that, not only in the industry, but also him as a friend. Mr. Aaron, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I would love to dive into the conversation as far as like solar is concerned. But before that, I would like to get a little bit of your backstory and just a little bit more about like how you got here to America. I know that you were in New Zealand.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
So came from New Zealand and then got here and was in New York, from what I gather, right? You went to New York
Yep.
first.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So I grew up in New Zealand. I was actually born in the States, but my parents were here in school, and so went back to New Zealand when I was 2, 3 years old, and grew up there, and moved back to the States at 30 years old, and moved to New York City with two suitcases, $1,000, and a heart full of dreams, and figured out how to make it work, I guess. But my what I was doing, I'd done a number of things, but you sort of, I think you hinted at it before we started recording. I was in the performance world, so I was a performer and a singer. I sang with the New Zealand Opera before moving to New York, and so the whole idea of moving to New York was getting into the acting world, particularly theater. And yeah, like I say, I had two bags of clothes, a week's worth of accommodation booked at a youth hostel, and $1,000, and then sort of figured out the rest from there. Um, didn't have great success at the original dream. I had some fun for a few years. I lived in New York for 9 years, and had some good times and some moderate success, but never really hit the big time. Um,
Was there anybody that you remember meeting out in New York that really stood out to you in that journey?
oh man, many people. I've still got a lot of great friends from my time there. One of them actually just this week, she's playing Madame Thenardier in the Broadway National Tour of Les Miserables right now. And that just stopped in town here last week, and so I caught up with her. I hadn't seen her for since I left New York, which is, 10, 11 years ago. And so that was really cool. But no, I've got a lot of great friends from back in the day. And I met some really influential people in the business over the years there. And but those that sort of stuck at it, like my friend that was in town last week. A lot of them are seeing great success now. But a lot more are like me, that just like, it was a grind. It was a very difficult industry to build a career in, and so most have sort of moved on and done other things over the years. But totally understandable.
Yeah,
But
it seems that kind of world is growing in leaps and bounds now. People are actually wanting to go to plays and they're starting to do plays of like movies. I saw that I mean, obviously Gatsby is one of those that is like a very common play, but they're starting to bring a lot more of like different comedies and stuff to Broadway. They're bringing a lot of like different movies.
yeah, for sure. And that's always, been a common thing for a while, that, they do the stage adaptation or the musical adaptation or whatever. And it's yeah, it's good. I mean, that tends to get in a broader audience, because people recognize it from, oh, I saw that in the movies. And then so it gets people who may not otherwise be in the theater coming to see shows, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the ones that I wanted to go see was Paranormal Activity. I heard that was incredible out in LA.
Oh, I
They
didn't even know about that. That's
Yeah,
cool.
they did like a horror movie type play, and I guess it was pretty wild to see visually. They
That
really nailed it apparently. But yeah, that's kind of something that was very unique and fascinating about your personality when we first met. I mean, I think I've known you now for 4 to 5 years. I mean, the solar industry just ages us.
yeah, it does.
But it's been probably about a half decade since we've been friends now,
Sure.
and I really found your lively personality to be very fun to be around. And I think a lot of that has to do, from my experience at least, with being around people of just all different backgrounds. And New York kind of just is that, it is that melting pot of
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
How has that shaped and influenced your life over the years to be able to become who you are now?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've lived in, a number of places. Really, I grew up on a farm outside a very small town, outside a slightly bigger small town. And so I grew up very rural, and uh, went from there. I moved to Sydney, Australia. I lived in the suburbs, but Sydney's a sort of a sprawling city, similar to LA in some ways. It's got, it's like, vast, sprawling sort of suburban network. So it was a pretty big city. At the time, I lived in Sydney for like 8 years, then moved back to New Zealand and lived in Auckland for 2 years. And I lived right sort of downtown Auckland. And Auckland is on the world stage, it's a small city, but it's the biggest city in New Zealand. I think there's about 1.25 million people there. So I've
Mm,
kind of gone from this rural thing to sort of living in the suburbs of a big city to living in the middle of a big city, and then from there moved to New York City. Um, and then from there to California, where I lived in the suburbs outside San Francisco, lived in the Bay Area, and then to South Carolina. And I'm not in rural South Carolina. I'm in sort of suburban, but it's somewhat it's on the outside. So I'm not in a neighborhood. I'm on a few acres and stuff like that. The nearest neighbor is, a good distance away. So not rural exactly, but certainly not suburban either. So to answer your question, I've had all the experiences being around a lot of different people from all over the world. I'm from all over the world myself in a sense. And I think it shaped me in a lot of ways. I mean, it, you know, my general perception on the world and things is, it comes from sort of a vast experience of living in all sorts of different places and meeting tons of people from all over the place. I mean, even just living not even in New York, but even living in Sydney. It's a very multicultural city. And so, I was a country boy moving to Sydney. I'd never eaten sushi, things like that. So I'm like, expanding my horizons by just learning new things about different cultures and meeting people from, Israel. I'm like, wow, that's so exotic. So, over the years, I've just sort of, been exposed to a lot of multicultural kind of diversification in many ways. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but I think it's shaped me in a lot of ways. Obviously my thinking and my mindset on certain things is definitely been molded by that exposure. Yeah.
yeah, I ask mostly just because I feel that people's experience is very short when it comes to where they travel and who they get around. It doesn't, they don't have a very long timeline of memories that they can account where it's like, I've been there, done that, was there for this amount of time, met these people, had these relationships. And I think that really hinders people when it comes to wanting to do more, live that fulfilling life and
Yeah,
elevate yourself. And
absolutely.
so that's kind of one of the reasons why I asked that is because as business owners, I do believe that it comes down to the relationship and the people that we really build those relationships with at the end of the day. You kind of have to lean on those people sometimes. Like I've leaned on you previously, where it's like business sucks. You kind of just need a friend to get you through it.
For
And
sure.
yeah, I mean, that's why I asked that question because it definitely requires to be extroverted to some degree, but also like not get around the wrong people. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
that's why I kind of asked that. But
Yeah, for sure. And I've had times in my life where I was around the wrong people, and it's just a learning experience. You start to figure these things out. And I'm 50 now, and so I've been around the block a couple of times, and I've absolutely made my share of mistakes and so on. And but it's that's all part of living and learning and growing up and doing better at whatever it is you do. Yeah.
yeah, it comes with its own shares of responsibilities that I think a lot of us unfortunately don't realize that we're taking on until we get to that point and then realize that you have to take responsibility for certain things, like people at the end of the day, like I had mentioned, you're now responsible for people within your organization and how you treat them and the reputation that you create within them.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to deal with. And so how have you navigated that over the course of your now, what, 10-year span within Firefly?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, good question. So I began in solar about 12 years ago, and yeah, I started Firefly 10 years ago. My 10th birthday is coming up in May of this year. And in the early days, I was, like I said, I started 12 years ago, so I was in sales, and selling solar is what brought me from California to South Carolina. I could just see an emerging market and some possibilities, opportunities here. So that's why I moved out here and started my company shortly after that. I was naive enough to think that hey, I'm good at sales and I'm making all this money for the person that owns the company. I want to make that money for myself. And that was a stupid thing to think. But live and learn. But I one of the things that I guess shaped the way we've built this company is when I was in sales, I worked for a couple of different companies prior to this, and they both just subbed everything out. So they were essentially the prime contractor, and they would just sub the labor out, and that comes with its pros and cons. But one of the cons is, I was the sales guy sitting at a table with, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner saying, you're making a good choice, you're in good hands, we'll take good care of you. And I was essentially making promises to them that I had no power to keep. And I would just cross my fingers that the people that did have the power to keep those promises would. And when you're working with subcontractors, you're just leaving yourself open to a lot of potential issues. And they don't show up when they say they're going to show up, or they do something wrong, then you can't get them back, and blah blah blah. So when I started this company, I made the decision that we would never use subcontractors for our solar, and we're stuck with that. And for better or worse, sometimes, like I say, there are definitely pros, certainly as a business owner, to using subcontractors. They cost less. You've got more versatility. You can scale business up and scale it down very, very quickly and very nimbly. All those things that you cannot do with an internal workforce. And just I might be going off on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's relevant. One time we had a really full solid sales pipeline. I think it was a couple of years back, and sales were building very, very quickly. We had a good stretch of a few months, and naturally, because as sales go up, we're not using subcontractors. With contractors, we don't have that ability to scale operations quickly. So our install timelines were dragging on and getting a little longer. We always aim in this market, we aim for about 3 months on average, which is pretty good. Sometimes it can be a little quicker, sometimes a little longer, but we try to make 3 months our goal. And at this particular period, our timeline was creeping up to 4+ months on average. And of course, the salespeople started to get a little antsy. They're like, "Hey, when's my job going to get installed? When am I going to get paid?" And so I sat down with them all, and one of the sales team that I have, they work here because of all the value that this company brings, and they can feel proud about representing it. And one of those things is subcontractors. So when they started to get gripey about the install timelines, I said, "Listen, there's one thing that we could do right now, today. We could make a decision today that would cut our install times down in half, to help us catch up on all this work. And does anyone know what that is?" And everyone sort of scratched their heads and ummed and ahed, and eventually somebody said, "Oh, we could use subcontractors." I said, "Yes, if we use subcontractors, we could cut that install timeline right down, and you get paid quicker. Who wants to do it?" And everyone was like, "No." Unanimously, "No, we don't want to use subcontractors because we're proud of what we have." And I said, and that's what you've got to get across to your customers who get antsy, is like, "Listen, would you like us to use subcontractors? We'll get it done quicker." And customers are like, "No, I went with you because you don't use subcontractors." So coming back to your question about, how we shape things and the decisions we've made, there's a lot that goes into that, but that's one of the big things, one of the big lines we've drawn in the sand right at the beginning, and we're stuck with it. And then the other thing too, and I get this, I sort of get this into the salespeople's head so they can impart it to others, to their customers, is that ultimately this is construction. Solar is we're a construction company. We just happen to have a specialty trade that we focus on. And in construction, there are always unknowns. There are always variables that you just cannot predict. Things will always, not always, but things will very regularly go wrong, and it's just out of anyone's control. What makes us different to any other contractor is that we acknowledge things are going to go wrong, but we are there to fix it when it does. So whatever happens, we're going to make it right. And we've sort of got this motto that if you're not 100% happy, it's because we're not 100% finished. What do we need to do to finish this off? Um, and so again, the salespeople understand that, they get that. They're like, "Hey, things will naturally go wrong. I'm here to sort of, liaise and hold hands if I need to, but ultimately it's what we do with the things that go wrong that set us apart from a different company." So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very beautiful answer, honestly, to the question, because that is exactly what builds people, is being able to establish those boundaries and just saying, like, this is the parameter that we operated in. If you don't want to operate inside of that parameter, then you can operate outside of it, but that's not what we do.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that is very crucial to make a point on, especially in your own life. As a business owner, you kind of have to sometimes set that boundary with your spouse or your children or whatever the case may be. and with yourself. If you happen to be working outside of those hours that you agreed to, and you're no longer servicing your family or your wife or what have you, your husband, if you happen to be a female business owner watching this, and you're not abiding by those boundaries, then unfortunately those boundaries don't really exist. You kind of just wash them away with your foot and then just kind of break them.
Yeah.
Especially now that we're at the end of January, a lot of people have broken their goals for the new year, and so that's kind
Yeah.
of another boundary that you have to set with yourself, right?
Yeah.
In business over the course of 10 years, what has been the most fun that you've had in regards to building your business? What's that thing that you can really hang your hat on? You're like, this is why I do this.
Hmm. Good question. I would say that over the last 10 years, I've spent the majority of that time honestly not really enjoying it because it's hard and it's stressful and it's we of the 10 years we've been in business, we haven't been profitable for most of those years. And we're doing actually last year was a record. We actually had a record year last year, so we're in a very good place right now, which is really good. But the one of the big struggles and the thing that the major contributor to stress is cash flow issues. It's very hard to manage cash flow in a construction company. And I think once we got a really good grasp on that, and we managed to we sort of put systems in place and so on to manage cash flow better and make that just work better for us. A lot of that stress lifted, and this has just really been in the last couple of years. A lot of that stress lifted, and I was just able to generally enjoy the process more. I don't know that there's necessarily a specific thing that's sort of been a highlight and an enjoyable thing. It's more about just the day-to-day process, hanging out with my team. I've got good people. I've got a great team that are really committed and invested in the company and the success and in the reputation of the company. And it's just good hanging out with them and just like getting work done together. Without that overarching stress of like, oh my God, how am I going to make payroll this week? Um, and those times, those cash flow crunches will still come up in the future. I'm sure they will. That's just sort of part of being a business. But I'm more equipped to handle it now, both emotionally and just sort of just with systems and everything else as well. So yeah, just generally speaking, to answer your question, what have I enjoyed the most? The honest answer is I haven't enjoyed a lot of it, but for the last couple of years I've started to enjoy it as that stress of the cash flow and profitability has lifted, and I've just been able to enjoy being here with my team and working with them and building something cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that answer because I use words sort of in a way to kind of get an answer that I'm looking to elicit, right? So joy itself, a lot of people they contribute joy and happiness kind of being the same thing. And to me, they're not. I think that if you're looking for happiness, you're probably going to end up empty-handed. But joy itself could be both bad and good.
Sure.
It's not always good to feel like you're just kind of beating yourself up, but then when you get through the process of that, you realize that you're doing it for a reason and you kind of enjoy it almost.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the beat up part, but being able to survive the beat up, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
you have that self-reflection, that self-awareness, and now you have clarity. And it's you're grateful for that clarity and you've enjoyed that process. And so I appreciate that answer. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people too, they don't understand there's a difference between like distress and eustress.
Hmm.
Eustress is like euphoric.
Right.
Distress is like you're getting shot at, but your euphoria is that you're there with your buddy in the bunker together and you're doing it together. There's like that
Right.
camaraderie, right? And
Yeah.
so in business, you have that where it's distressful, it's very hard, it's daunting. There's so many different things that you can attribute to being bad about being a business owner, but
Yeah.
also very joyfully a lot of good things. A lot of upside where you have freedom of time, flexible schedule to be able to go and pick up your kids from school if you need to, being able to work out when you need to, being able to do those things with your spouse that you need to or want to. And
Yeah.
those things you really enjoy, but you have to kind of grind it out sometimes. And so, yeah, with Firefly, I noticed here in the solar industry that we're kind of going through a bloodbath right now. A lot of companies are going out of business. A lot of sales organizations are now becoming life insurance sales organizations, and they're no longer believing in solar. They once did, and they were hyped up about it, making a ton of money, high fiving and everything, and now they're gone. And those homeowners are kind of just left wondering who's going to maintain their systems.
Mm.
That's why my company exists, Save Our Solar, to maintain systems and perform maintenance. But with a lot of these companies, they just decided that maintenance wasn't an issue. Why did you have a different perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting. To my perspective has evolved over the years. When I was newer and just in sales, not really on the operation side, before I had this company and everything, I was of the opinion that everything would just work perfectly for 25 plus years. And so, like, you put it on your roof, you forget about it. And I learned over time that's not always the case. And there is a lot of maintenance. It's their electronics, things break down. Um, and so we have our warranty has kind of evolved over the years. So we started with, I think, industry standard 10 years ago, most solar companies would have like a 2 to 5 year workmanship warranty. And then unscrupulous people that are just coming in like, well, we're better because we've got a 10-year warranty. So it's like, well, I guess I've got to offer a 10-year warranty, even though it's complete BS. But I've got to do it because we're losing business to this stupid company that's not going to be in business for 10 years. So whatever. So then we extend it to 10 years, and then other even more stupid companies started offering 25-year workmanship warranties. I'm like, this is just stupid, you guys, And they're all out of business now, so the warranty's not worth shit. So we kind of after when the company started offering 25-year warranties, we looked at other things. We would give our customers like a 1 year Omnidian subscription, which is like an O&M company. And I'm like, we'll give you a 1 year subscription. And the idea behind that was so that we wouldn't have to do expensive go backs within that first 12 months if something just didn't work out in 12 months. It's like, well, at least we'll get covered for this. And then after 12 months, we'll figure it out. Um, and then we just had our standard warranty after that. And then we kind of moved away from that when I discovered Solar Insure. I went with Solar Insure for a while, and that was the 30-year warranty that we would pay for as part of our. We did that with every single customer for a period of time. And because again, maintenance is important, people get upset when they've got to pay for something they thought was going to save them money for 25 plus years. Now I've got to pay money to save the thing that's supposed to save me money. So Solar Insure was a good option. And then from there, we moved on to a lifetime warranty system, which is similar to Solar Insure, but instead of giving your insurance premiums to Solar Insure, I essentially started my own third-party business. And so I am the Solar Insurer. And so I'm putting money, seeding money into this. It's an insurance company that's also backed up by a third-party insurance company. So there's different layers of protection there. If Firefly Solar is out of business, that insurance company will still exist and be able to service those systems. And even if that insurance company goes out of business, it's what they call a reinsurance company. So the insurance company that backs that will still be in business. So there's all these different layers of protection. But I mean, you asked why I thought it was important. It's just because it just really is. I mean, realistically, over the course of 25 years, uh, there are going to be some breakdowns in equipment for a lot of things. And I mean, Solar Edge, we used them a few years ago. They came out with a new model, and they had a really solid inverter prior to this, and then they came up with this new model, and the amount of RMAs and broken down inverters is just outrageous. And I think they've changed things since then. We don't use them anymore. But I've heard they're better now. But that happens in this business. Again, it's electronics, and sometimes you'll come out with a new model, and it's a complete piece of crap. Generac had the same thing. Generac bought a company called what were they called back in the day? Do you remember? What did they buy? Totally spacing on the name, but it was a small startup, storage company. Spacing on the name, but Generac bought them out and said, "This is great, and we're going to get into the solar space." And that product just wasn't ready for prime time, and they had all sorts of troubles. And I think they've fixed those problems now, but they've got thousands of systems in the field that have these problems existing now. So it's just one of those things. You've got to be prepared for that maintenance. And you got to take care of your customers. You can't offer a 10 or 25-year workmanship warranty if you're not going to be around. It's not what the paper is written on.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people actually sell on the fact that it doesn't need to be maintained, like you were talking about in the beginning there. Like a lot of us are trained that way. They literally
Yeah,
train solar sales reps to teach that to homeowners because you don't want to have an objection about like what if,
well,
right?
exactly.
But that is like one of the biggest objections. Like, what happens if
What
a
happens if
squirrel
it
is
breaks
chewing on my
down?
wires? What happens, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And so a lot of people I think they ignorantly just assume that they're being told the truth, obviously. But then a
Mm,
lot of people too, like if you just think about it logically, if you take an electrical component of some sort and put it outside up on a roof where it's the hottest point of the house
mhm.
and it's getting weathered on and rained on and snowed on and pooed on and chewed on and all these other things,
Yeah,
would it need to be maintained? Probably
yeah,
to some degree, I think.
yeah.
But yeah, then you have other extraordinary factors like lichen that grows on glass, right? That it's
Mm,
something that you can't get rid of it. It happens to exist in Florida. It grows on all glass, windows, on
mm,
cars, on houses, on everything. It just grows there. It's a humid environment, and so you have to scrub at the solar panel, which is porous, to get it out. And that's a
yeah,
laborious, intensive thing to do. You're not going to do that as a homeowner. You're not just
right.
going to spray your hose up there and it'll get off. It's not how
Hmm.
it works.
That's right. Yeah.
And the thing that intrigues me the most about this conversation too is that you have perspective of overseas solar. So, solar has existed in America now for about like 25, 26 years, popularly in California. And it has existed in other countries like Germany, China for a very long time. And
Mm,
so, the UK, even we see a ton of solar and it's dirty. It is the dirtiest solar panels you've ever seen in your life. And some of them still function somehow. And
sure.
so, we're taking a perspective of Australia's solar environment, where pretty much all of those companies now that install solar in Australia are fully vertically integrated solar companies, from what I gather, right?
That's my understanding of it. Yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's very much a retail model there. It's so cheap in Australia that you don't. I don't even think they ha have sales teams. At least not in the same way we have here. They're more like order takers. I mean, you can walk into a hardware store, and there's a solar company there. It's like, I need a 10 kilowatt system. Great, we'll be out on Tuesday to install it. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think I had a few friends out there that were making like $500 per sale.
yeah,
They're making
that's
like nothing, but they're clocking like 10, 15 deals a day, which is still really good money.
wow.
You
Yeah,
know what I
that's
mean? It's still really good money,
yeah.
but they're not really making the 15,000, $10,000 that, some sales reps are making per deal here in America, which
Hmm.
obviously is changing quite a bit with the PPA and retail model. But we are regressing quite a bit. The solar industry is only about a like a 5% adoption rate on that bell-shaped curve.
Hmm.
And I do believe it has regressed a little bit in this last couple of years, just based off of the uncertainty of what solar looks like, the administration, the tax credits, the
Yeah.
solar scams, the people going out of business, like Titan. Titan Solar Power went out of business at like 3 a.m. Everybody woke up, tried to get to work, and the gates weren't opening. You know,
Oh,
and that's what I heard at least. And
I didn't
so
know
I don't,
that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
literally shut up doors from what I understand at like 3 a.m. and people just couldn't like get to their trucks. Like they showed up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. and they just couldn't get in. Everything was locked up.
Unreal.
That's what I've heard at least.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the solar
it wouldn't
industry,
surprise me. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
yeah. So the solar industry is going kind of through that evolution now. And for those of us that actually care about the solar industry, which I believe you do as well as I do, this is where I plan to hang my hat until I die. This is the
Yeah.
industry that I want to be in, even if it happens to be on a consulting level once I exit. This is where I love being. I love talking about solar. I love everything that there is to have inside the solar industry and the way that it's shaping up renewable energy. How do you think that the solar industry will be evolving here in the future in America?
Yeah, good question. So obviously we're definitely going through a rough time right now. You said, bloodbath before, which I think is appropriate. It's definitely the downturn in solar currently and over the next couple of years is 100% political. There's no sense in BSing any other reason for it. It's 100% politically driven. And that's all I need to say about that. But what we're doing as a company is, and I don't even know if you realize this, but what we're doing as a company, we're sort of expanding our offering to get into more general construction. So
Mm.
we're already a licensed general contractor. We always have been. So, but again, we're just focused on a specialty trade, but now we're getting into more general stuff. So we're going to continue to do solar. We're actually really fortunate to be hooked up with a developer in Georgia that's got hundreds of homes they're putting solar on over the next 2 or 3 years. And so that alone will keep us relatively busy just by itself, let alone anything else we do. So I expect to stay busy in solar if for no other reason than that, and then whatever we can sell on top of it. But to kind of hedge ourselves against layoffs or going under or anything like that, we're getting to the more general stuff. So we're building not new home construction yet, maybe in a year or two, but for now, things like decks and renovations and stuff like that. But coming back to your question, what I expect is that solar is not going anywhere. It's just going to be a little quieter for a couple of years. And then what's going to eventually bring it back is um, kind of two things. I'm not anticipating future incentives. I mean, maybe an administration in the future will bring back some incentive. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but I'm not going to hang my hat on that expectation. So I'm just, preparing for the worst and saying there's not going to be that anymore. But what I do think will bring solar back slowly over a period of time is number one, utility rates are just going to continue to go up. And I think they're going to go up exponentially with all the data centers that are being built right now and the demand that's needed of utility companies to be able to provide that energy. So utilities, they're going to, and we have an aging infrastructure. So the utility companies have to invest in our infrastructure right now because the demand for energy is growing at an exponential rate like it never has. And we've got all this old infrastructure. So their costs are going to go up and they're going to pass it on to the customer. So I think utility rates are going to go up pretty significantly in the next 2 or 3 years, and that will make that payback period for solar a whole lot more attractive. And so that's one thing. And the other thing is to just once we get the political noise, the further that gets in our rearview mirror as an industry, the more people will adopt solar just because of like for what it is. And I think that again, there's a big political atomic bomb that just dropped on the industry this year. The more time that goes by, the more people will forget about that, and it will just be, hey, it's solar, and here's why I want to do it. It's nothing to do with politics or scam or anything else. It just is what it is, and I think just the general maturity in the market will sort of help to pick that back up again. Um,
Yeah, I don't disagree. I definitely think that the roofing industry, with as big as it is, and the private equity that's rolling up a lot of companies right now, I definitely think that they're looking at the solar industry very heavily, especially with them purchasing distressed assets like they've been doing for the last 2 to 4 years now. And
yeah.
so, with that, I agree 100%. And I think that a lot of these companies are going to be very similar to yours. They're going to be roofing, solar, vertically integrated from sales, lead generation, all the way up to maintenance. They'll have maintenance bolt-ons for roof repairs because the roofing industry is changing now as well. They're going a lot more to retail as opposed to insurance. And so a lot of these guys that are doing $1 million to $3 million a year in revenue, they're not going to be doing that anymore. Insurance just isn't paying like it used to, and homeowners don't have the deductible money. And
Right.
so some of these homeowners are seven, 10,000, $15,000 deductibles to get the roof done. They ain't got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so a lot of it is going to be retail focused. And so naturally, the detached reset world is starting to change quite a bit. You're
Mhm.
not going to have guys bidding at $150 a panel or $75 a panel anymore. I think that the solar guys that stick around for a long time, long time being 5 years, like I had mentioned, it does age us quite a bit.
Yeah.
A long time being about 5 years, I think that those companies that stick around, I definitely think will benefit the most, obviously. Like right now, we're gonna have to button up. Right now,
Yeah.
we're going through a little bit of a tidal wave.
Yeah.
But as that 5 year period hits, I do believe, like you're mentioning, kilowatt per hour for electricity rates is going to skyrocket. I mean, it's
Mhm.
going to skyrocket, especially with crypto. Bitcoin is a very energy intensive kind of thing that is going to become a normality in the future. And that alongside of a lot of these homes being absolutely inefficient, and like you said, our infrastructure just being archaic. That's all it really is going to come down to.
Yeah.
From what I hear, and I haven't looked into this yet, but I hear Maryland is shut down actually couple of their grids, and now they're outsourcing energy to bring it into Maryland, and it is expensive. It's like
Wow.
California prices almost.
Yeah.
So people are paying like 900 bucks a month for an 1,800 square foot house.
Wow. That's
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then you talk about like not having enough solar panels to be able to fit on the roof. So you can't even really get a full offset, but
right.
different
Yeah.
conversation. But
And just in terms of another thing that's really shifting too, and again, people can laugh at this all they want, but it's a fact. The climate is changing, and we're seeing that in real time now. So I'm bringing that up not to talk about why renewable energy is great over fossil fuels. I bring that up because that is factoring into messing up our electrical infrastructure. For example, the winter storm they had in Texas a few years ago that knocked out their grid for weeks. People died. It was a terrible, terrible mess. That wouldn't have happened in like a northeastern area because they would have built the grid up there to handle that kind of cold. The grid,
mhm.
the infrastructure in Texas is not built for that kind of cold. So as the climate changes, you've got heat waves or freeze waves happening in different places where they're not expecting, and that messes up the infrastructure. So they're going to have to start preparing for these climate changes in an infrastructure capacity, which again are just going to drive their costs and so on up. So it's
Yeah.
the cost of energy is going to skyrocket for all these different things.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you're also talking about like increasing amount of electrical vehicles that people are purchasing, the cost affordability of electric vehicles, energy usage in other countries compared to America, and that energy affects other places, obviously. Like it's a whole thing, and
Yeah.
people don't understand the economy of electricity. I
Mhm.
don't think enough. They are a little ignorant to it almost. They kind of just pay their electric bill and don't really think about it. They're not educated about what a kilowatt hour is unless you live in those areas like California where you're like, I have to pay attention to it. Like
I
I'm
know
being
what kilowatt
forced to at
hour.
this point.
Yeah.
Like PG&E, they're just going to keep raking up heights or hiking up rates,
Yeah. Yeah.
and naturally, it's just going to get more expensive to the point to where like we're living by candlelight. I don't know what else to do,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know.
Yeah.
And no, I totally agree with you. Right now, it's very political nature. You got roofing very much, who is the Republican of the construction side of that, and then you
Yeah.
got the solar, which is very much seen as the Democrat side of that. And that's why I created the company colors that I have, which are yellow and pink, because I do believe it is going to be just that general neutral thing where it's just electricity. Like just
Yeah.
put up on your roof. We still need fossil fuels to even make solar panels. So
Right.
like we still need you.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't want to
yeah,
get rid of you. Like just put
yeah,
these up on your roof to like protect yourself, you know?
exactly.
How do you think batteries will change though? Because I know a lot of people like they don't necessarily like solar unless there's a battery attached to it. So how do you think batteries
Yeah.
will change in the future?
I think there's a big shift in batteries that's happening right now, which is just the DIY. They're selling these and it's all coming out of China, but it's the DIY kind of plug in a 5 kilowatt hour battery to your home, even without solar, just plug it in, charge it up, have it there for a backup, and then have like 5 kilo. So there's one that I'm kind of looking at myself right now for white labeling, but there's different SKUs. So there's the 5 kilowatt thing that you plug in. It's got all these different outlets on it, 240, 120. It's got all these different sort of options, but then you can add on to it. You can add on in 5 kilowatt increments. Um, and it's completely DIY. It doesn't need solar, but you can plug solar into it as well. But it also comes with a transfer switch that you can wire up to your home and have and power your whole home just like you would a thing. And you'll need an electrician to do that, but the rest of it is just plug and play. It's DIY, and I really think that, and it's so much more affordable than buying a typical Powerwall or whatever. Um, I really think that's going to be the future of batteries, which is going to just take away from companies like mine in terms of being able to offer that as a service. But but I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, in the bigger picture, because it's going to make storage more accessible to anyone. A renter could do this. You don't need a big old $15,000 battery in the home that you rent. You can get yourself a 5 or 10 kilowatt battery that you just plug in. So I think that's the future of batteries, and it's going to keep driving the price down. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if batteries is kind of like the new sort of TV, where at one point TV was such a novel thing and only the rich people had it. And now every home has multiple TVs. I think batteries are going to be the same kind of way.
Mm. Even with like resources not being exactly abundant for batteries.
I don't know a lot about that, to be honest with you. I'm not really up to speed with that. I know that obviously there's nickel, manganese, cobalt, which is there's some um, there's a cloud over that, of course, because of how cobalt is mined in the Congo and stuff like that. But most batteries now most brands are moving away from that and just going to lithium ion phosphate. So, and I'm not sure if there's resource issues with lithium ion phosphate or not. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there might not be resource issues, but I know that there's like probably some wars or something that are being fought over the lithium phosphate down in Mexico. I have no idea. I'm ignorant to that as well.
Yeah.
But I do hear that Tesla is having some resource issues when it comes to like EV production for their vehicles.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to become a thing eventually because it's a finite resource at the end of the day, right? So like you can
That's
only
true.
your window of opportunity is closing essentially.
That's true. I do think that there are some, and again, I'm not super up to speed on all this because I'm not a chemist, but there are new technologies that are sort of very promising and sort of on the brink of, like hydrogen technology and stuff like that. So
Yep.
there are some things outside of lithium iron phosphate too that could be coming to market in the next few years, which would sort of would even make what I was just saying even more possible because it would make the cost way less than what it currently is. So, um, yeah,
Yeah, I
so
heard about a technology in Dubai that is chemicalless. It operates like more of like a mechanical feature. I don't really exactly know how it works, obviously.
okay.
Um, but I've
Uh,
heard of something like that.
there is, I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but there is a storage that it uses solar essentially to power a lift that lifts a massive, heavy concrete block up during the day while the sun's shining, and then at night when there's no sun, it slowly comes to the ground and turns some cogs and stuff, and so and creates energy that way. That might be what you're referring to. That's kind of a cool thing. It's kind of that's very much on an industrial scale. So it wouldn't be for a residential application, but there could be something else that you're referring to as well that I'm not aware of. But yeah, there are some pretty cool things out there that are kind of again emerging technology stuff.
Yeah, my go-to is always Stores AI by.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
sponsored by them yet, but soon to be. No, just joking.
yeah. Keep
But
saying they're gonna have to eventually.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
no. Everett Brewer and I actually just talked on a podcast the other day about Stores AI and Watt Hub. Yeah, and I do believe that actually the solar industry will start to evolve towards more of that commercial sector. I think it's kind of funny because politically, I think that it will eventually become this thing that Republicans adopt more than Democrats. It'll be
Mm.
almost like an EV vehicle when Tesla and Elon Musk got into the administration, and now everybody wants a Tesla. And previously, it was a Democrat thing, but
I mean, we're based in a red state. Like 90% of our customers are Republicans. You know what I
right,
mean? So it's silly that it's seen as such a partisan technology because it's absolutely not. And like I say, like I talked about climate change before, and not because I'm saying people should go solar, but because I'm talking about how that's affecting
the
infrastructure.
grid.
It's
Yep,
not a it's not about being a green tree hugger. You know what I mean? It's just it
right.
makes sense. It's
Yeah,
absolutely silly that it's divided politically. I again, as somebody who's spent a lot of my life not in America, um, and a good portion of my life in America as well. I've been here for 20 years now. Um, the, seeing seeing the amount of things that get politicized in this country just blows my mind. I'm like, why is this a political conversation? It doesn't have to be. And
yeah.
solar is one of those things. It's like, why is this political? This is the dumbest thing.
Well, I think the pain isn't there quite yet. And a lot of the Midwest doesn't have a whole lot of solar simply for the fact that the pain is just not there. Energy rates are cheap. And so it doesn't really feel like they need to go solar. But in like some liberal states like California, it is very much an absolute need because your utility bill is five, six, 700, sometimes 1,000, $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
Like if you have a bigger house and a big family, sometimes it's 1,000 to 1,500 bucks a month for electricity, not even
Outrageous.
gas.
Yeah.
And so it's a bigger issue out there for that matter, but it is seen as kind of that liberal ideology because it is a liberal state, I believe. But
Yeah.
as the pain increases, and we're starting to see that, especially with like the Cherokee Nation down in Oklahoma, they've seen the benefits of solar. They know the pain of not being able to have a grid they can rely on. They understand that there's an aging infrastructure. They get this. And so naturally they're getting into solar now. And so Oklahoma's going to be one of those states that booms now. And so
Yeah.
if the pain is there, it's not going to be partisan very long.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. And that's exactly how we've sold here in a very much a red state. Is we're selling on, hey, look, here's the value that the pain and the value are like the politics doesn't come into this conversation at all. This is going to add value to your life. Like, let's go, you know.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I don't disagree. I love the industry, and I do believe that it is going to evolve quite a bit. And I'm excited to see when it hits that mass adoption stage. You know, when we get to that 40 to 50% at the top of the climax of the bell-shaped curve, it'll be
yeah,
really cool to be able to have these conversations now, and then have conversations in the future about what we used to talk about. Because I think it's going to be a completely different world. I mean, it's going to
very
be
different. Yeah.
so many things will change. People are already asking me about like technology and changes and stuff, and I'm like, I think it's about as good as it's ever going to get, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if solar panels will get smaller and the cells will get bigger. But I think battery technology, I'm with you on that. I definitely think that'll be the evolution.
That's got an exciting future for sure. Batteries, yeah. I think my take again. I'm not a engineer or chemist or anything like that, so I'm not super educated on this stuff. But my take on solar panels is in the 10 years or 12 years that I've been doing solar. 12 years ago we were installing 275, 280 watt panels on a residence, and these days, it's on the higher end. It's up around 450 watts. Maybe a little higher, but. The panels themselves have gotten larger, so that's not necessarily a sign of an increase in efficiency. Um, the increase in efficiency from 12 years ago to now has probably gone from at the low end 18, 19% to the high end 21%, I think. So
Yeah,
very
incremental.
in 12 years, very, very little shift in efficiencies.
Hmm.
So we're never going to get a square foot of solar panel producing, 300 watts. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, I agree with you, especially with like Tesla shingles. You know, a lot of people ask me about that. And it's like the technology is just really not there. The way
Yeah,
that the inverter works, it's just not a very good product, in my opinion. And same with like solar shingles. I love the idea of being able to take a shingle and, smack it in with a nail, and there it is. No racking at all. That's awesome. But they just
yeah.
don't produce. And so, unfortunately, the technology is not there. I do believe that in the future, we'll probably have something like Germany. I think they have it now where it's like an adhesive strip that you put on the shingle, and then you stick the panel to the adhesive strip. And it's supposed to be rated up to like 150 miles an hour.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
And then you
the
put,
solar panel, but just goes on an adhesive?
yep. And then so there it exists now, but the problem with that was the ventilation. It would cause heat underneath the panel, and then it would cause everything to kind of get messed up. They
Kind of
figured out. I know the guy that has the patent that figured out how to create that ventilation that actually helps with that. And
interesting.
so they figured it out now, and Hyundai's fighting over it legally. But basically, you take an industrial heat blanket and you put it on top of the solar panel system, and it literally just like heats up the adhesive, and you just take the panels off, no holes.
Wow, that's cool. I'll be looking up.
Yeah, and it cuts the labor down in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
no time at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so it's
Wow.
just
Yeah.
plug and play, and so roofers would love that because a big issue is like integrity of the shingle. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've seen in the future that's coming soon.
Yeah. No, I like that. That'd be awesome.
Pretty fun, but
Yeah.
last question I would have for you is if you had to give a little bit of a perspective on what this whole business looks like for Aaron Davis and Firefly, and the next like venture you might go off on if you ever do decide to leave Firefly. What kind of legacy are you looking to have an impact with in about, the 10-15 year mark when everything kind of settles down and we're living in the future now?
Yeah, good question. I really do, like you said at the beginning, I really do believe in the solar industry. I do believe I am, um, again, this is where politics might come into the conversation, but this is just me personally. Me personally, I'm a tree hugger. I do absolutely believe in climate change, and I do believe that we can and should be doing more than we are. or as much as we can to try and curb that. Um, and I don't want to get into a debate on climate change and what's causing it and blah blah blah. That doesn't matter. Whether we're causing it, whether we're not, it's happening, and we could be doing things to curb that to a degree. Maybe we can't stop it, but we could be doing something. And so the legacy I would like to leave, especially because we're now branching into sort of more general construction, um, I would like to, build a company and have it still in existence, long after I might have exited it, that really focuses on sustainability in general. And so that obviously includes solar, that obviously includes storage, but just general sustainable building practices, the materials we use. And I'm learning all this stuff now. I don't know a lot about it, so I've got a lot to learn over the coming years. But materials and just various practices to leave a smaller carbon footprint, and build homes in a way that use less energy, so very, very energy efficient homes and that kind of thing. I don't know if you knew this, but I bought a solar company in New Zealand earlier this year, or late last year rather. And that company actually, it's a solar company, but they actually sell a different kind of product called solar thermodynamics. So it's not PV. We are going to introduce PV to their offering, but historically they've sold a thing called solar thermodynamic, which is it's for hot water, but it puts a refrigeration panel on the roof, just a single panel, and for most homes, pumps the gas up there, and it's essentially a heat pump. So it draws heat out of the atmosphere, heats up the gas, and then heats the water. Really, really energy efficient. So it uses apparently about a half a kilowatt hour a day per person in the home for all their hot water needs, which is very, very little. So that's so again, with construction, I would like to have everything that's like as energy efficient as possible and that kind of thing. So we are building a future for our kids. I don't have kids, so I'm building a future for your kids. But for the next generation after that, it would be great to leave the planet a little better than what we found it. So that's definitely the legacy I want to have. And also just a company that people love to be at, and a company that customers love to work with. I think that's possible. There's a lot of construction companies that don't have that. So I would like to. That's the kind of company I'd like to have and leave. Yeah.
I love that, man. Yeah, you've always been a people person first, in my kind of perspective of you. I don't know if I said that correctly. A people person first. That's kind of a tongue twister a little bit. But that has been my perspective of you, and that's one thing that I've cherished about our relationship is that I just feel comfortable being able to approach you about business or life or whatever. And you've always really been that person for me. So I really appreciate that about you, first and foremost.
Cool, man.
So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I will always cherish our drunken pictures together at SolarCon.
Yeah, yeah. We got to
uh,
do it again. We got to find another convention to get drunk at now. So,
Heck yeah, man. The roofing conventions are really fun. You got to come out to some of those. But
dude,
yeah,
I went to
as
one of
far
those. It was awesome. Yeah.
yeah, the as far as the energy aspect, as far as general construction, one thing I found that was pretty cool that I don't know if you know about or not, just a real tidbit real quick. Hempcrete. You've heard of hempcrete?
Hemp. Oh, I have, but I had forgotten all about it. Yeah, but now that you said that, I'm like, yeah, I have heard of that. It's
Yeah,
like
so
a hemp derived concrete, right? Cement kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
crazy thing is like you can plant a acre of hemp and it grows, I think, in about like 90 days or 120 days. It'll grow to like full maturity. You
Wow.
can you can chop it down and then you can make two parts hemp, one part lime, and like compress it down into like these little molds. And you
Yeah.
can create blocks of hempcrete in like a 90 to 120 day period. And it's, I think, don't quote me on this, two or three times stronger than concrete, flexible for earthquakes, fire retardant, bug repellent, and you can actually bulldoze the house. You can till it all under, regrow the house, and regrow the hemp within that 90 to 120 day period and redo it again and build the same house again.
That's interesting. Do you know
Yeah.
how much building material do you get out of an acre of hemp?
I think it was something like 1,800 square feet or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have to have like the frame of the house kind of built, but then the walls themselves are hempcrete.
Interesting.
Yeah, the thing that I thought about that was really cool about it was that it's fire retardant and earthquake proof California, but the lumber industry does not love that.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so
I'm
that
gonna
was
look into
something
that. That
I
sounds that's definitely up my alley for the direction I want it to go. So that's awesome. I'm gonna look into that. Yeah.
yeah, you probably have to do like a crowd-funded insurance policy of some sort or like a reinsurance policy like you're talking about in the beginning with solar. Because insurance companies they won't give you homeowners insurance on it. So that's another thing. It's like you can technically do it, but you won't get insurance on your property.
Interesting. I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's big business, baby. That's what it is,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
For
So
sure.
yeah. But anyway, I appreciate our conversation today, man. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective of the solar industry and business and life and all the fun
Yeah,
stuff.
man. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me
Right
on.
on. Thank you guys. I appreciate you tuning in to another episode, and I look forward to talking to you next week. See you guys.
All right.